Jamaica's economy grew by 4.6% in the third quarter of 2025, driven by growth in goods, 10%, and services, 3% in those sectors, with agriculture leading the way with over 20%. However, Hurricane Melissa's impact is expected to cause a severe contraction in the coming months. More and more I'm reading and I'm seeing popping up all over that we're heading towards a recession. That is not good news at all. We're going to dissect that matter, and we're joined this morning by financial analyst David Wan. Good morning, David. How are you today?
I am fine. Thank you, Richard B. Morning to you also and your listeners.
Thank you for joining us, David. And we're also joined by the president of the Micro, Small, and Medium-Sized Enterprises, Antoinette Hamilton. We're always happy to have her on. Good morning, Ms. Hamilton. How are you today?
Good morning, Richie B. Thank you for having me. I'm great. Thanks.
Wonderful. David, is Melissa likely to send us into a recession?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind, Richie B. It is going to cause a recession because, simply put, several jobs have been eliminated by the hurricane. Several businesses have had to close down. There's a reduction in the amount of goods and services that some of these are going to sell. There's some hotels who have closed down and laid off employees. So there's no doubt in my mind it's going to lead to a recession.
Antoinette, do you see it the same way? And if so, what are some of the strategies that you might be contemplating now as someone in business yourself to mitigate the economic contraction that is being forecasted?
Okay, well, I do share that we're going to have significant contraction. However, similar to what happened in Q3, where we saw increased government spending as a result of the election, because GDP is driven by four main factors: consumption, investment, government spending, and net imports or export, right?
Yes.
So what changed in Q3 was that there was an election, there was a lot of government spending, and we've been talking about the government need for spending, especially as it relates to the capital projects. And if it is that they are able to accelerate those, I think we can have a lesson of the level of contraction that is expected. Mm-hmm. So government spending is always important to drive economic growth. It is not just investment by foreign direct investment or private sector, mm-hmm. but it also has to do with government spending. And with the net import bill expecting to increase, yes, contraction is definitely expected.
And so are you starting to look at ways now in your sector as to how you can mitigate the impact of this impending recession?
Well, ways, we have always been looking at ways. And, you know, the thing is that our sector is driven by the availability of credit facilities at reasonable interest rates or reasonable terms. In some cases, the support from government in terms of grants, and the support in terms of certain policies that could be changed or loosened to assist with the small businesses. We spoke about, I think it was mentioned that possibly they need to look at import duties and look at possibly reducing those so that persons who import for the productive sector, they can be able to cushion some of the effect of a fallout that they will experience in the couple months, October, November, December into January. Mm-hmm. And just being able to recover. We have been severely affected in the western side, and so infrastructure rebound is critical to get back businesses operating. But not only that, to prevent people from losing their houses, their cars, their investment, because they'll be out of income for quite some time, and there's a possibility that the banking system might see an increase in uncollectible debt.
Wow.
So it is important for early recovery, mm-hmm. so that persons can retain their investment.
Thank you, Antoinette. David, the outlook is rather bleak, and I'm trying to figure out, and listening to both of you, like where are the growth sectors that you think we need to pay close attention to if we are to put up a stern, strong fight against this impending recession?
Well, I see it. There are a few ways we can do that. I mean, the first and foremost thing, Richie B, is that the government needs to play its role in facilitating the receipt of aid, the allowance of persons to get back quickly as possible to what they used to do, to help small business to recover, etc. Now, some of the things that they're doing on the surface might seem questionable. For example, the loan to JPS that they just announced yesterday or just recently.
Yes.
On the surface, sounds like, hold on, we have a lot of relief to do. We have plenty of things to fix. Why are we lending JPS money? But the way I see it is that JPS had said there's such severe damage to certain areas. They need to go get financing to get the equipment to repair those areas, the transmission line. And to me, that loan, if it will facilitate the rapid recovery of the distribution system to those areas that are very severely damaged, is part of the hurricane restoration. So, to me, that is something that, paradoxically, it sounds like by misallocating resources, but I think it is very well spent. So, and for example, the clearance of the airport and the roads at very early time after the hurricane, to me, is what government ought to do, and it did it quickly, so that relief can come into the airports. And, that's the way relief gets here, because we certainly don't have it internally. But you speak about growth industries.
Yes.
I think the bigger focus has to be, how do you restore what we had before? Because the growth industries sometimes can be fairly lengthy in finding investors to come in and invest in certain industries. As I understand it, the hotel sector is somewhat impacted, and there's going to be some closures for a while. So how can the government facilitate them to get back on their feet as quickly as possible? Import duty waivers is one of those ways. Also, for the micro small enterprises, maybe the government can find a pool of funds somewhere to help to get concessionary loans to those small and medium enterprises that have been hard hit by the hurricane, so they can get back on their feet and re-employ people, etc. So those are the things I think they should be doing. Get us back quickly to where we were, I think, is the best bet, in addition to pursuing new business opportunities that may come up. Mm-hmm. The call centers fared fairly well, as I understand. But how do we get more of that business? It's a relatively new industry. So that's what I think about that, Richard.
All right.
May I comment on that?
Yes, please go ahead, Antoinette. Yes.
Right. So as it relates to the JPS loan, one of the concerns that we will have as SMEs is whether or not majority of that spend will be in the affected areas. If that is so, then yes, we may see a rapid recovery in that area. So because the minister had mentioned that the spend will be mainly for trucks and some assets, as well as line staff. Will those line staff be from the affected areas and not the other non-affected areas, so that we can have a speedy recovery? Will those supplies or trucks be employed from those affected areas? I think that is a question that we would want to hear from the minister, and so we can have a better idea as to the speed of recovery in that area. Additionally, one of the concerns I had when I listened to that was what about JPS insurance proceeds? Is it that their insurance payout is going to come late for their assets? Is it that their assets weren't fully insured? I think, yes, while we want to accelerate the recovery of electricity, which is very important to the recovery of the economy, we still have to be very, prudent in how we assess, how we spend the same resources that, or taxpayer dollars, right? So in terms of JPS insurance, is it that is going to come late while we're upfronting this? And if that is so and it's going to come late, then maybe we need to reduce the tenure of the facility and peg it to when that insurance proceeds is going to come from JPS insurers, assuming that their assets were
insured.
Fully and sufficiently insured.
Good point there. Antoinette, let me stick with you. David, you want to say something?
Yeah, I can just mention, I heard JPS saying that the insurance for many of their assets, distribution assets, were prohibitively expensive because it's an exposed system as opposed to an underground system for distribution. That's what I heard. And it sounded like they didn't have insurance for some portion of the distribution system. But I'm only repeating what I heard. I don't have detailed knowledge about it.
I know I heard Minister Vaz, who had in fact spoken about the fact that they need to go underground with some of their systems. Do you know whether or not any of this money that is being loaned by the government is to be used to accelerate that process?
I don't know any of the details of tenor or purpose. All I heard Minister saying, it is to facilitate a more rapid recovery of the system in the places that were hard hit. That's all I heard.
Okay. Yeah. Antoinette, I wanted to ask you if you could sort of paint a picture as to how badly impacted was the MSME alliance, of which you're the president. Okay, so
our members were badly affected in areas Westmoreland, Negril, Trelawney, parts of St. Elizabeth, even St. Mary, Portland. The main challenge for them is still the lack of electricity. And so I think the last interview I had, I asked about timelines in terms of when JPS is expected to address, especially the substation in Sav. So that was the main concern. But yes, a lot of our small businesses have been severely affected, and majority of them would have requested building materials. So you can imagine their shops damage, their manufacturing material damage, their business place damage. So building material generators would have been their main request, which we have submitted to the Ministry of Investment in Industry and Commerce. And we're expecting to hear from them in terms of how they can assist our members who are badly affected to recover. Of course, we have farmers, when people think about hairdressers and barbers, they might think that that's a very low-skilled entrepreneur, but no, they do employ people as well. And, I was just thinking about it the other day. There's one of our hairdresser has a office in the New Kingston Shopping Center. That's not a cheap place.
Right.
So when people think about hairdressers and barbers, and we say these are also our members, they might say, oh, what contribution they have to spur economic growth? They employ a lot of persons, right? And just the one in New Kingston, for example, employ over 4 persons. So I don't want, when we talk about our members and we mention hairdressers, barbers, and beauty practitioners, where they are looked down as, are they critical to economic growth at a pace that we want? Yes, they are critical because they're employers. Remember that MSMEs are the largest employers. And yes, while we want to focus on mass reemployment at this time, we still have to complement it or simultaneously restore those MSMEs that are severely affected, that are crying out for help.
Thank you, Antoinette. David, are there specific government policies or incentives that you'd like to see implemented to support, business growth and recovery?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. The first one that comes to mind is for those productive enterprises who've been hit. I think government should consider reducing the import duty rate temporarily on the items that those companies used to produce, so that you don't have a situation where the price suddenly goes up because there's a short supply on this product, to alleviate the problems in the short term. Temporary reduction in duty on productive sector items that are now in shorter supply due to the hurricane. Mm-hmm. That's one. Mm-hmm. I think there should be a window for some concessionary loans that are more medium term, meaning this is for construction, not for working capital, that would help some of these companies to rebuild their capital stock. That's the second one. I think there should be, they should look at things like, even for the chicken industry, if there's been a significant drop in productive capacity, I think they should look at reducing temporarily import duty on the imported chicken. So those are the two items I think I would like to see for policy.
All right, Antoinette, I give you the last word. What do you want to leave with us this morning?
What we would like to see, especially for the badly affected areas in Westmoreland where our MSMEs are, the substation there in Sav, we'd like to see the loans, the generator loans that the government mentioned, to be granted to some of those businesses in that area. Because based on the projection from JPS, they're looking at February, March. I know the minister is adamant that he wants it by January, but they're looking at February, March. And if that's the case, you're talking about 4 months out of income for a lot of persons whose business was their only source of income. So if those areas can be granted the generators urgently, right, then I think that will help. And that's our ask for today.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, the predictions are not looking too good for the economy. Both of you are agreed that we're heading towards a recession. Seems like we might have to start ban with belly, David, going forward.
But just very quickly, fortunately, after the immediate future period, meaning after a year or so, you'll see a nice boom from the construction that's going on. Mm-hmm. But in the immediate short term, it's going to be a downturn.
All right. Thank you, David One. Thank you, Antoinette Hamilton, for your thoughts and your time this morning. Have yourselves a good day.
Thank you.
You too.
All right.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Bye-bye.